Have you ever felt someone's presence even when there's no message, no call, nothing but silence? It's that unshakable feeling deep inside, the sense that they're still there, quietly keeping up with your life, even though they haven't spoken to you in days, weeks, or even months. They don't reach out, yet you know they're scrolling through your pictures, checking your stories, and staying updated on everything you do. They watch, but they'll never admit it, not because they don't care, but because their pride won't allow them to. They would rather sit in silence than send a simple message like, "I miss you." To reach out would mean tearing down the illusion they've created, the illusion that they were in control, that you were the one left waiting, that you were the one who needed them. But what they don't realize is that your silence is breaking them in ways they never expected. Every moment you stay quiet forces them to face a truth their ego can't handle. They need you far more than you ever needed them. This isn't just about missing you. It's about the power shift they never saw coming. They keep watching, hoping to find signs that you're still hurting. Sad posts, emotional quotes, anything that confirms you're struggling without them. But when they find nothing, when they see you living your life without a trace of desperation, that's when reality hits them. That's when the game changes. Your silence is louder than any words they could ever say. Your absence forces them to question everything they once believed about you. Were you really the one who was weak? Or were they the fool who assumed you'd always be waiting? What truly breaks them isn't just your lack of response. It's the fear that you're becoming someone they'll regret losing forever. In this video, we'll explore exactly why they're watching but refusing to reach out. We'll break down the psychology behind their silence, the mind games they're trapped in, and how you can take back your power without saying a single word. But before we dive in, take a moment to like, subscribe, and drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is my power, and it speaks louder than any words. If you're ready to let your silence do all the talking, let's begin. 1. They pretend to forget, but they're watching everything. They act as if you're just another chapter they've closed. But deep down, you're the story they can't stop rereading. They put on a show, posting pictures with friends, pretending to be happy, acting like they've moved on. But don't be fooled. Behind that facade is someone who checks your page in secret, searching for any sign of the person they thought they'd always have access to. The truth is, people don't watch what doesn't matter to them. If they were truly over you, they wouldn't be lurking. The fact that they're still watching, while pretending not to care, is the clearest sign that you still occupy space in their mind. They won't like your pictures because they don't want to admit you're doing just fine without them. They won't view your stories right away because they don't want to seem too interested. But the more they resist, the more their curiosity consumes them. What keeps them hooked isn't what you post, it's what you don't post. Every smile, every adventure, every day you go without reaching out, it's driving them crazy. Stay silent, stay strong, because in the end, your silence is the one thing they never expected, and the one thing they can't ignore. They're waiting for a sign, any proof that you're still hurting, still stuck in the past, still missing them. But the longer you remain silent, the more their mind starts filling in the blanks on its own. The most powerful response isn't posting to prove you've moved on. It's letting them watch and wonder if they ever even mattered enough for you to think about them at all. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "If anyone tells you that a certain person speaks ill of you, do not defend yourself, but reply, 'He must not know all my faults, otherwise he would have mentioned more.'" There's a profound lesson in that. The more you stay silent, the more they create their own version of you in their mind. They'll assume you're outgrowing them. They'll assume you've moved on to a life where they no longer exist. And most of all, they'll fear that you've become someone they will never have access to again. Let them assume. Let them question. Let them lie awake at night, unsure if you're still hurting over them, or if you've finally realized they were never worth your tears in the first place. The greatest power you can ever hold is becoming the mystery they'll never solve. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I am the mystery they will never figure out. 2. Why they're watching but not reaching out. They watch, but they don't reach out, because pride is the only thing standing between their heart and their phone. They still care. That's why they keep checking in silence. But caring and taking action are two very different things. To reach out would mean lowering themselves. It would mean admitting they were wrong. It would mean handing back the power they once believed they had over you. And for someone whose ego has always come before their emotions, that kind of vulnerability feels heavier than the silence they hide behind. They aren't watching to admire your happiness. They're watching to see if you're still broken. They want to believe you're still waiting, still replaying old memories, just like they secretly are. But what terrifies them isn't the thought of you missing them. It's the possibility that you've stopped missing them altogether. Psychology tells us that when someone watches you from a distance without reaching out, it's because they are still emotionally attached, but too stubborn to admit it. They're hoping to find evidence that you're still under their spell. But the longer you remain silent, the more they realize the spell is breaking. They don't text because the moment they do, they lose the illusion of control they've been clinging to. Their biggest fear isn't just that you won't respond, it's that you've outgrown the version of yourself who would have answered right away. And the longer they wait, the harder it becomes. Every day of silence adds another brick to the wall between their emotions and their actions. Every time they check your page without messaging, they feel the weight of regret sinking deeper. The philosopher Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." That means you don't need to block them. You don't need to post indirect quotes. You don't need to prove anything at all. The best revenge is becoming someone they no longer have the privilege to access. They broke you, expecting you would always wait to be fixed. But now, your silence is showing them the truth. You're not waiting, you're rising. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I'm not waiting, I'm rising. 3. The psychology behind their silence. Their silence isn't strength. It's a defense mechanism. The human mind always protects the ego before it allows the heart to feel regret. When they walked away, they convinced themselves it was the right decision. They believed you would be the one left waiting, hurting, and hoping for them to return. But what they never anticipated was that your silence would become your greatest weapon. At first, their mind tells them you're just playing a game, ignoring them to get their attention. That's why they watch in secret, waiting for you to break. They look for a sad post, a cryptic quote, any small sign that you're still holding on. But when they find nothing, everything shifts. Curiosity takes over. they start asking themselves why you're not chasing them, why you're not showing signs of pain. Frustration creeps in as they realize that the person they once believed would never let go is now giving them absolutely nothing. And that's when the silence starts to hurt. A message could be ignored, an argument could be dismissed, but silence forces them to sit with their thoughts, to question everything they once believed about you. That frustration turns into fear that you're truly moving on, fear that they no longer hold power over you, fear that maybe, just maybe, they meant more to you than you ever meant to them. Yet, even as that fear grows, their pride whispers, "Don't text first, they'll come back." That's the battle happening inside their mind every single day. They can't reach out without swallowing their pride. But the longer they stay silent, the heavier their regret becomes. By the time they finally recognize what they've lost, they're left with two choices: lower their ego and reach out, or suffer in silence. Most will choose silence because facing their own reflection is harder than losing you. The philosopher Seneca once said, "It is a great thing to know when to speak and when to stay silent." Your silence isn't just making them miss you, it's forcing them to confront the version of themselves they spent the entire relationship avoiding. The version that assumed you would never leave. The version that took your loyalty for granted. The version that never imagined you'd find your power in their absence. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence is teaching them what my presence never could. 4. How you can feel when they're watching. Have you ever found yourself suddenly thinking about them, out of nowhere, even when you were doing just fine? That's not just a random memory. That's their energy reaching for yours. When someone is watching you from a distance, their thoughts create an invisible pull, a connection that lingers even without words. Every time they scroll through your pictures, every time they type your name into a search bar, every time they replay old conversations in their mind, they are sending out energy, even if they don't realize it. And you're picking up on every single signal. The bond between two people doesn't break the moment they stop speaking. It weakens when one person finally stops waiting. The moment you reclaim your power, the moment you let go of their energy, that's when they truly begin to feel your absence. 5. Breaking the invisible connection. The moment one person stops feeding an emotional connection, it begins to fade. The reason you still feel their presence isn't because they're physically there. It's because they're still emotionally attached to you. But instead of reaching out, they're trying to satisfy that attachment from a distance. And the more they watch in silence, the stronger the energetic pull becomes. That's why, out of nowhere, you'll feel waves of nostalgia. You'll wake up thinking about them. You'll dream of them trying to speak to you. You'll sense their presence even when you're actively trying to move on. But here's what they don't want you to know. You have the power to break the connection. Every time you miss them, it's because they're pulling on your energy. But every time you resist the urge to react, you're taking your energy back. The fastest way to sever the tie is to starve it completely. Stop checking their page. Stop replaying old conversations in your mind. Stop looking for signs that they're watching you. The less attention you give them, the weaker the connection becomes. Until one day, you wake up and realize you don't feel them at all. The greatest form of freedom isn't proving you've moved on. It's actually moving on. When you fully release someone from your mind, They will feel that disconnection without you ever having to say a word, and nothing will haunt them more than realizing they've lost you without even a goodbye. Drop this affirmation in the comments. I release what no longer serves me. 6. What their silence really means. Their silence isn't rejection, it's confirmation. Confirmation that you are stronger than they ever expected. People take for granted what they believe will always be there. They walk away from those they assume will always wait. If they're not reaching out, it's not because they don't care. It's because they're testing how much control they still have over you. Their silence is a trap. They're waiting to see if you'll break first, if you'll reach out, if you'll prove them right, that no matter how they treated you, you'd still come running back just to feel close to them again. But the moment you refuse to play their game, their silence begins to backfire. Every second you stay quiet sends a message louder than words ever could. Silence says, I don't need you. Silence says, I'm not chasing you. Silence says, I'm becoming someone you'll regret losing. What they truly want isn't just a message from you. They want proof that they still have a hold on you. But when that message never comes, their ego starts to crack. The truth is, their silence isn't confidence, it's fear. Fear that you're actually better without them. Fear that you're becoming someone they no longer have access to. Fear that you've finally realized your own worth. Your silence is forcing them to confront a reality they tried to ignore. That they were never as important to you as they convinced themselves they were. They're not reaching out because the thought of being ignored by you is more painful than the thought of missing you. And the longer you hold your silence, the more that fear will consume them. Epictetus once said, if you wish to be loved, love yourself first. This is your moment to put yourself first, to realize that the most powerful thing you can ever say is nothing at all. Drop this affirmation in the comments. My silence speaks louder than their pride. 7. Should you reach out first? Absolutely not. If someone truly values you, they will make an effort. No excuses, no hesitation. When someone genuinely misses you, their pride won't be a barrier. Love doesn't hide behind silence. It moves beyond ego and fear. The only reason you're even considering reaching out is because, in the past, you were always the one to mend things. But this time, the pattern ends. Every time you break your silence, you hand them back the power they willingly discarded. You confirm their belief that you're still waiting, still hoping, still holding on. If they truly wanted to talk to you, they would. If they truly valued your presence, they wouldn't risk losing it. The most powerful response you can give isn't a message, it's absence. Let your silence be a mirror that forces them to see what they lost. Let your distance teach them a lesson they never saw coming. Resisting the urge to text them may feel difficult, but remember, silence speaks louder than words, and in your silence, they will hear everything they need to. Marcus Aurelius once said, a person's worth is measured by what they value. If they truly valued you, they would reach out. If they don't, let them feel what life is like without you. Drop this in the comments. I will never beg someone to recognize my worth. 8. What happens when you stay silent? When you choose silence, two things happen. They begin to unravel. You begin to heal. Most people would rather suffer in silence than face the guilt of losing someone who would have done anything to keep them. At first, they'll assume this is temporary, that you're just waiting for the right moment to break down and reach out. They'll check their phone, expecting your name to appear. But when the days pass and no message comes, their confidence turns into confusion. Confusion turns into uncertainty. Uncertainty turns into regret. With every moment you stay silent, they begin to realize something. They no longer have the control they once did. You're no longer chasing. You're no longer proving your worth. You're no longer available. But the biggest transformation won't be what happens to them. It will be what happens within you. The longer you hold your silence, the stronger you become. You'll stop waiting for their validation. You'll stop seeking closure from someone who never deserved your energy in the first place. You'll wake up one day and realize you've outgrown the version of yourself that once begged for their attention. The Stoics believed that true power lies in self-mastery and silence. It's not weakness. It's one of the most powerful forms of control. When you choose not to react, you reclaim your energy. And when you reclaim your energy, you become untouchable. By the time they realize what they lost, you'll be too busy becoming the person they never expected you to be without them. Drop this in the comments. My silence is my strength, and I am rebuilding in private. They may be watching, but their pride keeps them from reaching out. What they don't realize is that your silence isn't about hurting them. It's about healing yourself. You don't need their validation. You don't need an apology. You don't need them to realize your worth. The best way to move on is to evolve into someone they can never reach again. Drop this in the comments. I am not waiting. I am rising. If you're choosing growth over chasing, be sure to subscribe for more content like this. Because the most powerful transformations happen in silence.